see how you're performing in the interview.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously this is a tech program for Europe, right? So what's your interest in tech? Why did you choose a tech program specifically?
Well, I do have somewhat of a tech background before I came to Europe, so I was somewhat familiar with it. I worked for a tech company for 2 years,
Oh, okay.
so I was familiar with some hardware material, things like that. And the reason why I have interest in it, just because I feel like technology is literally in everything that we're doing, and it's just, it would be wise for me in the field that I want to get to be familiar with what's going on in technology, since it's now being incorporated into so many different fields, and it's so versatile. So there's always going to be some technology anywhere in whatever we're doing. So
Yeah.
I felt it was important for me to not be, I mean, if I don't have to be somewhat of a tech whiz, but at least know the language of technology to know what's going on, so that I can communicate to different people no matter what field. So this is my introduction, a really substantial introduction to technology.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So you kind of touched on this a little bit already, and you said about why you want to work in tech, and you mentioned a field that you want to get into. All that. So what field do you want to get into? So why specifically? How do you feel specifically like tech is going to support you in getting into the whatever fields
Yeah.
you want to get into?
Yeah, so what I do outside of work, I do performing arts. I have a passion for performing arts. So it's music, theater, musical theater, production, things like that. And what I have noticed when I was working in those fields, a lot of them are using a ton of technical equipment. OS, Mac, Windows, things like that, a bunch of production software. And I felt as though it's important for me to navigate through it. And I felt like if I just get the basis of the tech knowledge, it would help me a lot in just learning how to operate it in tech. So just merging them together, merging the two worlds together of tech and art and things like that, I feel like it will be a very smooth transition. So that's why I felt like if I have the technical knowledge, then I will be able to. For example, if I may share, for example, with web development, that's totally with, building a website, constructing a website, and knowing what goes well in what website. And with artists and things like that, we're going to be doing a lot of websites to showcase our work and, really advertise ourselves as artists and as a brand. So even though I'm not going to be a back-end developer or a front-end developer, I would at least want to have that language to speak to whoever my web developer is at the time to help me get my creation out there the best way possible. So if I know a good amount of the tech knowledge and just don't leave it, for the web developer to do whatever, I have somewhat of a creative control when it comes to that. So that's a prime example of how I feel, my tech knowledge will definitely catapult me into what I want to do later on with it. That's why I was explaining about how versatile it is. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned briefly, like you were in a tech position before you came here. So how did you hear about Europe? And I guess again it's a similar question. What made you want to join Europe?
Yeah, great question. It's my favorite one. I was working retail for a tech company. I was working retail for a tech company for 2 years, and a friend of mine who was also working there, who I've known for a long time, quit that job. And so I was there working while he was here at Europe, and I wasn't sure what he was doing. I wasn't sure what he was doing. I just knew that every day he was just in a suit and tie, or a shirt and tie, and so after a while he did explain it to me, but it still didn't resonate to me at the first conversation of Europe. And further down the line, he really broke it down to me of what Europe does, and he said, you know what? I really think that you'll benefit from this program because they're literally, aside from the tech knowledge that you'll be gaining, they really teach you a lot of life skills. And I'm sure that you will benefit from this program. So, this is somebody who has my best interest at heart and who knows, he has a good judgment for things. So I took him up on the offer and I attended the first info session with So. And I was definitely convinced. I knew about how hard the program was and how rigorous it would be. So I knew I would be able to do it. And during that time, I was also out of school. So I had to kind of weigh out my options and everything, because at the time I heard about it, I had just turned 23. And, you know, the age cutoff is 24, 25. So I applied the first time and I didn't get in because I didn't have all of the things that I needed, unfortunately. So the second time I went at it and I came back even stronger and I had everything I needed. I took the feedback and, you know, was really coming to Year Up, advocating for myself just because I felt this program was really going to, like, save me. And that's something that I've strongly felt since day one. So it didn't stop me the first time when I didn't get in. And after that, I got in, and this is where we are now. So, yeah.
Great,
Yep.
thanks.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're very excited and passionate about being in this program. And so just kind of curious to hear about, while you've been here and during learning and development, what was your biggest challenge or growth area? And what did you do to overcome this challenge?
I would say my biggest growth area was receiving feedback. And receiving feedback just because I know it was more so of kind of using my judgment with filter. I know one of our guidelines with feedback is using your judgment. And I never knew that I had that problem or that was a growth area for me until I actually put it to the test. And I've had so many discussions with, you know, my PM and, you know, different staff members and some colleagues that I have a good rapport with, asking, okay, how do I go about this? What if I disagree with, you know, the feedback that was given to me? What do I do in that situation? Just because I wanted to be able to be receptive to feedback, but also keeping in mind of the using your judgment and being mindful of who is giving the feedback and things like that, and just kind of just using your judgment with it. And I had a lot of discussions with my PM about it, and she gave me a lot of really great advice, because that was something that I realized, and I had to be honest with myself, that I had to realize that, okay, sometimes, you know, you have trouble receiving certain pieces of feedback. So how can we overcome that so you are a better professional and you have a better rapport with your team members, so that you can be somebody that is easily to work with. So I was able to do that, and it's getting a lot better just because I'm being mindful of it and just being strong in my sense, and also really realizing that I'm still learning, and this is what learning and development is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like in the name of the whole phase itself. So giving myself a little bit of a cushion to, okay, make mistakes. It's okay to make this mistake. Just you need to learn from it, and you can't make it the second time. So that's what it's a constant thing. It's a constant thing that I'm fixing right now. So yeah.
So sorry, just one follow up to that.
Yeah.
So great to hear that you've been working on this and that you are feeling like you're making progress. Is there anything specific that you've done in order to help you receive that feedback?
What I've done, it's more of like, obviously the first thing they tell you is, obviously don't take it personal. That's like the one thing, which I had down, but it was more of like figuring out, okay, who is telling me this feedback, and what in like why are they telling me, like in what instance? So it's more of like kind of thinking, you know, in retrospect, okay, what was that where was that piece of feedback coming from?
Right.
And just having that conversation with that, just to help me get a better understanding, and working with that person to kind of, in a way, using that person as like an accountability partner. And not only in doing that do I improve myself, but it does create a better relationship with that colleague as well. So those are kind of the action steps that I take with feedback, and I honestly, I pride myself in doing that, because it has helped me a lot, you know, with kind of growing and developing myself as a professional. So
great.
Yeah, it's something I learned. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you think you'll bring that experience here to internship? Because it's only a few short weeks from now. where you may be getting feedback, and maybe it is coming from a good place, but they may not exactly follow our feedback guidelines.
Yeah.
So-
The previous job I've had was huge on feedback, so I was already familiar with the feedback culture. Honestly, I think in a sense like that, where in the work field there is no learning and development, so it's just more of really, I think also still working with that colleague, but in a situation like that, you probably may not have time or people are busy. At that point I would just use my judgment and just kind of analyze the feedback as if it wasn't me in the equation.
Mhm.
So kind of having a neutral perspective to it and just really kind of analyzing it. I think that's how I would kind of go about it in an internship, environment.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yes.
Do you have scenario-based questions?
Well, we could ask with the,
Yeah.
so I believe you came in here, you got the job descriptions already, right?
Yes.
So could you tell us specifically which one you were?
So I was interested in project coordination, project management.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what makes you a strong candidate for the role?
Well, I know I have really strong leadership skills and I'm able to, and I have great communication and public speaking skills. So in doing that, I'm able to talk to my peers, and in communicating, I'm able to know what my colleagues' strengths and weaknesses are, just so that when we're doing, or strengths in this case, strengths, weakness or growth areas, strengths, just strengths or so. We want to focus on that. But I feel in doing that and having that open communication and knowing what that person's strength is, we're able to leverage tasks and figure out, okay, who's the best candidate for this specific task, who's the best candidate for this. So in doing that, I'm able to have that. I think that's a strong part of my leadership ability. Also, my public speaking as well. I'm in Toastmasters here at on site, which is awesome, by the way. So not only does it help with your speech delivery, it also helps with your leadership skills. So that has definitely helped me a lot because I had never been in a program like that. Also, I'm very organized and very detail oriented. So I like to really analyze certain pieces of information with my team and everything like that, and making sure that everything gets done correctly and on time. So like I said, communication is a huge thing, a huge component in that, making sure that everybody is doing what they need to do. If there's anything that we're having a trouble with, I'm open in talking to that person and making sure we're getting the task finished accordingly. That's something that learning and development has kind of shown it's kind of revealed itself to me that this is something that this is a really strong point of mine. So that's why I feel like I'm the best candidate for project coordination. Yeah.
Great. Well, so kind of along those lines, because it sounds like you're a natural for product coordination. Imagine you were asked to organize a room with a lot of tech equipment. What tools and processes would you use to track what's there, so what's in the room, and then what needs to get taken out?
So one thing I'd use, I would really make friends with Excel and just have a very organized, detailed chart of what's going on in the room, because this is pieces of data that we're going to have to give to somebody, a superior perhaps. And so organizing that, making sure that that's really where it needs to be, and making sure I'm also sending emails of what's going on and how many how many technical equipment we have, things like that, just so that it's organized so we can all see it and do whatever we need to do from there forward. So I would definitely use that tool, hands down. Yeah.
Okay, so you already talked about how you're very organized and detail oriented, but we all slip from time to time.
Yeah.
So tell me about a time you missed a deadline,
Oh.
and what did you do to cause it to happen, and then what did you learn from that?
Okay. And it could be Europe related
Sure.
as well. Okay. I missed a deadline. It was so I missed a deadline in sending, sending in a survey that had to get done for one of our trainers. And that was missed just because of, the chaos of the week. So it was just that one little task that was important, and it ended up costing me literally by missing it, which was fine. What I did was, honestly, I knew it was a few days after I knew it happened. So I just definitely communicated that. Okay, this is what happened, X, Y, and Z. So it was a very smooth. Smooth process of which it happened in, and I learned in a sense like that. And this was one instance where I slipped up, because what I normally do is I have planners and I use my calendars on Outlook just to keep myself organized. And I was telling a colleague I write everything out, and everything is in repetition so that it sticks in my memory bank. That was just one instance where it didn't work, but I learned from it, and so it kind of taught me to really, really check and make sure that your deadlines are not being missed and that you have everything that you need at the right time. So it was a small example, but it definitely, put things back in line for me at that moment, because I had never missed a deadline until that point. So, yeah, so, it's just trial and error. Yeah.
I think it's probably should move to the tech one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can start it. Yeah.